This lecture looks at creating a confidence interval for a mean from a one-sample study. It is in Module 2, Comparing Groups. I will demonstrate how to create a confidence interval in the context of our first study example. Remember that our first study example looks at the sleep hours of high school students. Remember from our Variability and Estimation Module 1 lecture that because we are only taking one sample, we must consider that a different sample may give us a different statistic, what we call sampling variability. Therefore, we use a confidence interval to take this sampling variability into account. The sampling distribution of a mean is centered at the true population mean. If a statistic falls in that 95% range around the true parameter, the interval will hit or cover the true parameter. Otherwise, it won't, as in the case of x bar 3. Every confidence interval in this class will be constructed by taking the point estimate, our statistic, and adding and subtracting the margin of error to obtain the upper confidence limit or upper bound and the lower confidence limit or lower bound. The margin of error for a one-sample study is shown on the slide. T star times S divided by the square root of n, where T star is the critical value of the t distribution, S is the sample standard deviation, and n is the sample size. Looking at the previous slide, T star is the cutoff point on the x-axis for the 95% region. To calculate the margin of error, we need all three pieces of information. We know from the previous lecture that our sample size is 2060 and our sample standard deviation is 1.2237. We can find T star using Excel. The Excel command is t.inv.2t. The function has two arguments, probability and degrees of freedom. Probability is 1 minus the confidence level, in this case 95%, so the probability is 1 minus 0.95, or 0.05. The degrees of freedom for a one-sample study can be calculated by taking the sample size and subtracting 1, in this case 2060 minus 1, or 2059. We can type this information into an empty box in Excel and press Enter. This gives us the result that T star is equal to 1.961117. Now that we have all three values, we can plug these values into the margin of error formula. I recommend doing this in Excel, as your other calculations will be in Excel. Please pause this video while you calculate the margin of error. Excel has a great feature for assisting with calculations called cell referencing. Instead of typing in the values, I can click the cell where those values are housed to insert them into the margin of error formula. If any of the referenced cells are changed, the formula will update automatically. Based on this calculation, we see that our margin of error, or MOE, is 0.052874. As a side note, S divided by the square root of n is known as the standard error. We now have all of the information that we need to create our 95% confidence interval. Please pause this video while you calculate the lower bound and upper bound of the confidence interval. It is convention to write the smaller number first on the left side of the interval and the larger number second on the right side of the interval. Note that you can also do this calculation in Excel. In addition to calculating a confidence interval, we need to interpret it. The basic format for an interpretation will always include the confidence level, the parameter, and the interval. You may choose either option 1 or option 2 for the interpretation format. However, do not combine the two interpretations, as this is completely incorrect. Therefore, you may say that we are 95% confident that the true mean sleep hours for high school students is between 6.93 hours and 7.03 hours. 95% is our confidence level. The true mean sleep hours for high school students is our parameter, and 6.93 to 7.03 is our interval. Remember that the idea behind a confidence interval is that with repeated sampling, 95% of intervals will cover the true parameter and 5% will not. This is the basis for the second interpretation. Now we will consider a confidence interval for the information in study example 2. Remember that we are interested in comparing the iPhone app to the photo tracing method. Therefore, we will subtract scores for each method and take the average of the difference of the scores. This means that even though there are two scores, we will be working with one mean, as we are interested in the difference of the scores. In Concept Practice 3, you will find the confidence interval for the true difference in scores for this example.